Hey guys, this is Jackson Mummy at Celebration Bar Review. I'm glad to have you with me tonight if you are listening or if you're with us on the podcast. I wanted to share some thoughts I had at the end of a really long day of mentoring students as we're preparing for the July 2016 exam. And so I titled this particular Facebook Live presentation about the demons that inhabit your bar exam study. I saw an awful lot of people wrestling with their demons today, and there were some commonalities and some common factors, and I think it's more than just the individuals I was talking with. I think this is something that a whole lot of people really struggle with at this point of being 3 weeks or so until the exam. And so I wanted to share 3 of those demons that I see people really working on and try and give you a sense of how I think you can resolve them or work through them. So I hope you'll join me and pick up this message either on video later or as a podcast and give me your comments and your questions. And if you're here at Facebook Live tonight, love to have your comments as well. So I want to talk about what I call demons, the things that kind of get in the way here, that blow up your studies at this stage. And as I said, I think there are 3 of them. The first is self-doubt. Oh my gosh, this is huge. You know, I think this is a time when, if you're a bar taker, you start to doubt whether or not you really know anything. You wonder if you're ever going to absorb all the material, if you're ever going to understand what's going on, if you can make sense of all of the material that's coming at you and all of the stuff that's happening. And self-doubt starts to creep in. I think it's pretty natural to have that kind of self-doubt. I think one of the reasons for it is that this is the point where you're still acquiring information and yet you're beginning to move towards consolidation. And when you're in that acquisition but not quite consolidation phase, it just feels incredibly overwhelming to you. And you can start to doubt yourself. Am I any good at this? Am I capable? Am I going to be able to know what I have to know and do what I have to do? And the self-doubt starts to grow. You start to hear this demon in your head that says, you know, in its best little demonic voice, you can't do this. You're not good enough to do this. And it starts to get louder and louder and louder. And some of the people I've talked to today are really, that voice is so loud, it's screaming in their head so loud that they cannot hear what they're doing right. They can't see the improvement in their work. They can't see the development of their skill set. Look, if you're feeling that self-doubt, one of the best things you can do right now is go back and look at your earlier work when you started to study for the bar. This would include looking at your essays that you wrote. It would look at the multi-state questions that you took. It would even include looking at your journals or your notes, anything that you took. Look at the difference between when you started and where you are today. Now, for those of you that are in our course, if you've been writing, we've been recording our conferences with you, and you can go back and review those early conferences, and it's incredibly instructive just to see how much growth there's been. It's a little bit like when our kids were growing up, we would take and measure them on the door, what do they call it, door sill, door jamb, and to our surprise and amazement, they grew. Which would explain why their pants only came down to their knees sometimes. But as it happened day by day, you weren't particularly aware of it. It's only when you measured it over time. And I think the same is true here. If you're suffering from self-doubt, go back and look at your earlier work. The odds are pretty good that what you're doing right now is way better than what you were doing then. And if it's not better, then I think you want to ask yourself why. Why am I not improving? But I think the reality is that for most people, the vast majority of you, it will be better work, and that should help erase some of that self-doubt that you've got. I also think that if you're suffering from self-doubt at this point, you should remind yourself that the next couple of weeks are about consolidating what you know, so that once you finish the substantive review of the material and you turn your attention to consolidating, taking what you've learned so far, packaging it, putting it together, seeing how it fits together, that a lot of what you're feeling right now, a lot of that am I smart enough, do I know enough, will begin to resolve itself. In other words, this is a self-correcting problem for a lot of people. And as long as you don't give in to the self-doubt right at this moment, you'll be okay. I think it's the people that let the self-doubt explode all over them that then lose their way. They become so distracted, so discouraged, so unhappy that they can't quite recover from it. And that's why I wanted to come out tonight and have this conversation with you. If you're feeling that self-doubt, this is the time that you press on. This is not the time to give up. It's not the time to quit. It's not the time to throw up your hands and say, I can't possibly do this. Oh, sure you can. You're close enough now that you're going to do it. And really all you have to do is press forward and move forward. Set the self-doubt to the side. If you're still feeling the self-doubt in a couple of weeks and you're in our course, I want to talk to you about it for sure. And if you're in another course, talk to whoever you've hired to mentor you or whatever that course offers you. But don't wallow in the self-doubt. Don't let that become your permanent, perpetual state of study for the next 3 weeks. So that's one of the demons that I think is definitely out there. A second demon that's particularly pervasive for those who've taken and failed the exam before is the demon of failure itself. Now, this demon can be true for first-time bar takers as well, and the mindset that you've got, and I think it was Carol Dweck at Stanford that talked about this, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And she said, look, if you've got a growth mindset, you accept failure as a way to learn, to get better, to know new things. But if you only know that you're only allowed to succeed and failure is unacceptable, what they found when they studied little kids that way is that the kids became very tentative. They wouldn't take chances, they wouldn't take risks, they wouldn't try new things because they were terrified that they wouldn't be good at them. And the kids who didn't really care if they were good at them or not, just sort of went in and made a mess. They were kind of pig pen-like, and they grew. They had what was called a growth mindset. And we've done some other messages about those two mindsets, and I'll link up to those. But this growth mindset versus the fixed mindset becomes very important when we talk about failure. Because for some of you who've taken and failed the bar, that is the demon that's playing in your head. You failed, you failed, you failed, you failed. But that's not true. That's a lie. You failed the bar exam is not the same sentence as you are a failure. Let me say it again. The sentence you failed the bar exam is not the same as you are a failure. You're not a failure. By every measure of the world, you are a success. You have been to law school and completed it. You've been through college and completed it. You're in a position to take a bar exam, even if you fail it. For the vast majority of people in the world, that is massive success. And yet against the standard we hold ourselves to, we say, well, I failed the bar exam, and so now I feel like a failure. And here's where this demon becomes so incredibly powerful, in that once you begin to equate failing the test with failure as a person, you become tentative, you become afraid, you move to the fixed mindset and away from the growth mindset. And it impacts the way you study right now. Now you start studying and writing tentatively. Instead of writing kind of flat out, go for broke, leave it all on the floor, you're writing very carefully, very tentatively. You don't want to make a mistake. Well, that doesn't work at all. It's a little bit, I've said to some of the people I was talking to today, you kind of got to be Rocky, I'm all bloodied up, I'm a mess, and I feel like Burgess Meredith, right? Hey, Rock, you can do it, buddy. But you got to get up off the stool. You got to go out there and get bloodied up a little bit. You can't be worried about failing. You got to have the courage to go take the shot. And I think what happens to some people at this point is we get close to the exam, they remember that failure from before, and it acts like this beacon, going off saying, must fail, and it scares the living daylights out of you. And as a result, you start to withdraw, you start to become tentative, you start to not trust. This is when I start to get comments from people like, well, I don't know if your system's going to work. I don't care if it works or not. I mean, it's what you bought, it's what you're doing. It'll work if you do what I tell you to do. But it's not about me or my system. It's about the work you do. And what's really going on is this attempt to push off and say, well, I don't want to be a failure. Well, of course not. No one wants to be a failure. And failing the bar doesn't make you a failure. And yet, if you equate the two, if in your mind failing the test makes you a failure, what's going to happen? Well, for a lot of people, it means they'll do a half-hearted rule of study. Or they'll say, I've got to learn everything to pass. Or they'll put themselves in the hole with 3 weeks to go and say, I'm just now going to start my studies. So that when they do fail, and watch this clever move that they make, when they fail, they're then able to say, well, you know what happened? I didn't have enough time to study. I didn't know enough law. It was that bar review course I took. In other words, we're always looking for a reason for the failure so that we can preserve our own self-dignity. And I'm not saying it's pride or ego, it's just our own self-preservation. And we say, well, so I'm not a failure, it's these other things. But here's the thing. The person I respect the most is the person that goes down swinging. It's the person that goes in and says, I may not be the smartest, I may not be the best writer, I may not be the best multiple choice taker, I may not be the best at photo reading, I may not be the best at doing performance tests, but you know, by God, I am going to give it everything I've got. I'm going to keep going till the last second. I'm going to drop every ounce I've got on this exam. I am just not going to give up. I will be in that person's corner till the end. Till the end. It's the people that are just kind of like, oh, I don't know, I don't do very well on the bar. You know, it's kind of hard. I haven't done really well. I didn't give enough time. I have to work. My family hasn't been giving me much support. You know, it's really bad. Really? Really? If you could see what your fellow bar takers are going through, the incredible hardships that some of them have, that they are pushing through against all reasonable odds in order to be ready for this exam. It doesn't guarantee that they're going to pass. It's just that they're not afraid of failing. But some people are so terrified of failing that they won't make the effort. And so if you find yourself starting to pull back right now, if you find yourself starting to be tentative, if you're taking the easy way out, no, no, no. You can't do that. This is when you put your foot down on the floor. It's when you fight harder. It's when you come back tougher. It's when you get mad and say, I'm not going to put up with this anymore. I'm not going to let the bar examiners push me around. I'm not going to let the test define me. Can you tell I'm a little worked up about this? Yeah. Because there's nothing that breaks my heart more than watching a perfectly talented, capable person self-destruct. And that's what some people do right now. And they do it because they're so afraid of failure. Hey, you got to take some risks. You just got to. And you know what? When you're starting to practice law, you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to walk into some cases that you're not supposed to win and give it everything you've got. Are you going to say to your client, oh, you know, I don't think we should really mount much of a defense here because, well, really, you're a loser. I don't think that's going to happen. So, second demon is failure. And the third demon, oh man, this one is really tough. It's really tough. This is the ghost of past experience, whether it's on the bar exam or somewhere else. Some of you, many of you, have had someone in your life who's criticized you. A teacher, a parent, a family member, a friend, a spouse, sibling. Somebody's criticized you and it cut you to the core. And when they did that, in that moment, that criticism stayed with you. And it became part of your definition of who you were, part of your self-image. And so they said, well, you know, he's not very good at writing. And somehow you accepted that. Or he's not very smart. Or she'll never really be a very good at being a lawyer. She's not really capable enough. And it smarts, it hurts. I'll tell you something. I was a very, very competent law student, okay? I promise. But I had the amazing experience of then teaching alongside the very people that taught me, and then hearing them say, well, we didn't think you were really all that exciting as a law student. Well, excuse me? I mean, really? You're really going to say that? I mean, how utterly, obnoxiously snobbish can you be? And yet, if I had accepted that and said, well, gosh, maybe I'm really not very smart, and maybe I'm not a very good teacher, I don't think I could be effective at what I do. In other words, I couldn't let the ghost of those comments stay with me. I couldn't let it haunt me. And there are ghosts that haunt each of you from somewhere else in your life that may have nothing to do with the law at all. The ghost of that time you did something stupid as a child and everyone laughed at you. And so now you're afraid to take the risk on the bar exam. Or the time that you just didn't do well on a paper in school or a class in school and there was a teacher that made fun of you for that or was less than encouraging. And it stayed with you. And so here we are 3 weeks before the biggest test, arguably, of your life, and suddenly that stuff is flooding back into your memory banks. And you're going, oh my gosh, maybe I'm really not good enough. And it goes back to that self-doubt and failure. And those ghosts come to reside with you. Now, those of you that follow me know that we live in Celebration, Florida, right outside Disney World, and we go to the Magic Kingdom frequently. We're annual pass holders. And one of my favorite rides with a last name like Mummy is got to be the Haunted Mansion. And there's a great part of the Haunted Mansion at the end of the ride in which the hitchhiking ghosts jump into your car with you. And now they're really sophisticated. They take your magic wristband and they know who you are, and they've got your name on the picture frame with the ghosts that are hitchhiking with you. And I think about that when I think about this idea of ghosts of the past. They are riding with you. They are in the car with you. They are at the test site with you, reminding you, in some cases, that you can't do it. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not talented enough. You're not capable enough. Oh, screw them. They don't know anything. They don't know anything. They're just figments of your imagination. They're just ghosts from the past. The fact that you're sitting in the bar exam room taking the test shows how wrong those people were. Flat out. And you have to understand that, recognize it, believe it, and act on it. If you let the ghosts control you in these next 3 weeks, you are going to be consistently unhappy, you're going to be consistently afraid, you're going to be consistently unable to accomplish things. Don't give in to that. Don't let those ghosts happen. Call them out by name. If you're a person of faith, you might recall that there are many places in the Bible in which the demons are called out by name, and they say, "Oh no, don't use our name. Don't call us out." "Oh yeah, come on out. Come on out." And then they jump into the pigs, and the pigs run over the cliff. That's where those ghosts belong, in the pigs running over the cliff. And so if you're struggling with this, if there's something in your past that is still haunting you, you need to have an exorcism. You need to get it out. Cry it out, talk it out, write it out, but be done with it, because it does you no good on this test, and you don't need to give in to that. Well, you might say, that's pretty tough love here. I hope that you recognize that I'm only saying these things because I see what people do to hurt themselves, and you don't need to do it. If you've come this far, if you've done your studying, you've done your work, if you followed the directions and the instructions, even if you made the poor choice to take another bar review course, you're still miles ahead of most people. And you still have enormous possibilities. And the only thing that will stop you on the exam is not the examiners, not the bar review course, not the other people in the room. The only thing that will stop you is yourself. And so for the next 3 weeks, really lock in, understand that, believe in yourself, believe in what you can do. If you're in our course, use the affirmations, use the meditation, use all of the tools that we've given you to enhance your learning and your study. And if you're not in our course, find those tools wherever you can and use them. But whatever you do, make certain that you move forward with confidence and belief that you're capable. And if you do that, the demons are going to shut up. And that's exactly what they should be doing. Hey, thanks for all the positive feedback and affirmation that you all are giving me tonight. I hope this is helpful to you. If you want to know more about what we do to help people get past all of that, join us on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern for our live masterclass, How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. We'll talk about the 4 steps that are necessary to pass the bar, and we'll talk a little bit about demons there as well. And you can register by just going to our website at celebrationbarreview.com. Click on the button that says Claim My Free Seat, and we'll get you registered for that. And if you've already been through that and you're in the course and you're studying, hey, go get them. Don't let these crazy demons stop you. You're capable of it. Thanks now. See you later. Bye-bye.